everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life After Kids with Doctors Brooke and Lynn. I'm Dr. Brooke.
And I'm Dr. Lynn.
Why are we laughing already?
Oh, you're just giving me that look. Like,
I'm giving you a look like, let's go. Let's get it, girl. Okay, on to more important things. Tell them what the topic of conversation is today.
well, we're talking about kids as they get older and kids at college, kids beyond college. And as moms, how we can let go of worrying about them
If we
when
can
they're
solve,
out of the nest,
if we can solve this problem,
right? We can solve anything.
I mean, this is
because
probably,
moms are gonna worry.
I
right?
mean,
That's just who we are.
yes. So I did that reel with, behind every good mother who lays in bed worrying at night. And then it
Went
flips to
so
my
viral.
son, my middle son driving in the car. And it's like, is a kid who's living his best life, not texting their mother.
It hit
And,
a lot
and it's had so many views because it's relatable, because it's what we do. There's that meme that's, what is it? I'll have to put it on our story. It's like nobody in my family appreciates the fact that I was up all night worrying for them. Right? It's kind of.
That's great.
Yeah.
You're
We're so
clueless.
underappreciated. My worrying is so underappreciated. Anyway, let's unpack this, because we do. Here's the thing. We've talked about this before. When they're under our roof, we still worry, but we see them at the end of the day. We can
Yep.
check in on them multiple times a day. They're there physically. We still have at least some control now as they're going through high school. At least I find with my kids, they're more independent. We're not
Mhm.
driving them everywhere they go. They're driving. So they have, there are things they could be doing that we don't know about. But then, as they launch into the world, college and beyond, even if they don't go to college, whatever it is, this is a whole new realm.
I know. And I was just saying goodnight to Lila the other night, and I think it like hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, because she wants to go away to school. And like, this is something she does every night, where she comes in and says goodnight and turns off her light when she's going to bed. And I just had this moment where I was like dagger to your heart, where there's going to be like weeks on end where I won't be able to do that. And I mean, I know we did it with Jordan, but it was a little different because obviously he wasn't living full time with us. And
Yeah.
I know for Lila, it's going to be, stay tuned for,
So I just
for
want to
Dr. Lynn's experience as she goes through, right? I know you're looking at me with this, like, hold on, sister, get ready.
I didn't want to interrupt you, because I have a tendency to do that and I feel bad. You need to smack me. But I want to just take a second here, because I had a whole year leading up to Anthony leaving where I was just about weepy on social media platforms about my son leaving, and you saying, I have to do posts on other things because I'm just not emotional about it. Like, it just doesn't bother me. It's okay. It's a natural phase of life. Hold
Oh my
on,
gosh,
sister,
did I
because
say
now
that?
it's coming.
Did I say that?
You did. You said
How
that to me
rude.
many, many times. I've got to stick to the facts, and I've got to this. It's a natural part of life. And I
Suck
just
it
don't,
up, sister.
I don't feel things the way you feel. And in my mind, I'm going, just wait.
Just you
when
wait.
Lila's ready to go, because
Gosh.
you two are attached.
Well,
more,
I think,
like,
and honestly, going back, I knew she's been saying forever, and mostly because it was my idea for her to go away. So this goes back.
It was your
because,
idea.
Well, I did not grow up in the US. I grew up in Canada. So I traveled a long way to go to graduate school. And I really feel that it is important to live somewhere new and see a new culture and just expand your horizons, right? So from a very young age, and in Canada, college is like a big deal. In other words, like, in our family, I guess, at least, there was no question you're going to college. I know
Yeah.
that's not like that in everybody's family, but in our family, that's the way that it is. And so I've just been planting that seed, because mostly because I thought that, well, that would be, and I'm such a learner. I want to move places and live new, even though I love where I live, don't get me wrong, but I would love to move somewhere. So that whole time I'm telling you that, probably if I think back, I'm thinking in my head, like, rationally, like, I'm moving with her.
I was just going to say, you're going to be the mom that moves
Yes,
and lives
and
right
that's
next
why
to
I was
campus.
like, oh,
You
it's fine. Suck it up.
You're hilarious.
Oh.
And the funny thing is, She's probably not gonna mind that. I mean, if I moved, I used to threaten Andrew, my
But
middle
is
one
that
who's leaving.
okay? I think
No,
she knows she needs to separate a little bit.
yes,
Like, she's not an only child because we have Jordan, but for intents and purposes, she's grown up in the house without her big brother
right.
living here. So a lot of times it's just the three of us. And there is that dynamic. If you have an only child, definitely want to hear from you on that. But there's that dynamic for the three of you guys to be very, very close. Whereas if you add that second child in there, don't you think? Because that's how I grew up. It was me and my sister. And it was like when we went places, it was like she and I interacted a lot, and my mom and dad would interact a lot. And then sometimes we would interact with each other, but it was mostly just like the two teams, so to speak.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I can't, I mean, it makes sense what you're saying. It's just that I'm trying to think of, my aunt and uncle had an only child. Most like I don't know because my frame of reference right now is you guys, and I don't know if it's just because you're so
You're
close
saying
that
you're not sure it's normal.
no, I'm saying that I'm fairly certain that it would be the same way if you had 2 or 3 kids in
Oh,
your house. That you would all just be I don't know. I don't know if it's a function of it's just the one child or
that's
it's
the
like
funniest thing you've
you
ever
just
said.
all like and anyway, it's just different family dynamics.
Yeah. And
But
that's what makes it cool, right?
and I'm not making fun of it because by the way,
Well,
like it's so special the connection you all have to her. You're so blessed that you have a teenage
it does
daughter
make it
that you
trickier
are that
though,
close to,
because it does make
but
it,
you're going to have a harder time.
yes, because, self-proclaimed control. We all like to have control over our environment,
Yes.
right? And our
Some
people,
more than others.
and that's why, in some more than others, and I'm one of those others. But that's what this is really about. It's about letting go of control, surrendering.
Yes.
And I was just thinking about this the other day. It's scary up in my brain, like how just randomly, like I'm putting on socks or something, and I'm thinking about just how in life there are certain times and places where we have to surrender or let go and take a leap, so to speak. And beautiful things happen on the other side. I mean, think about when you're having your baby, even, and you get to that really hard phase of labor. And just when you're thinking, oh, I can't do this anymore,
Yeah.
you have to sort of just surrender and let go. And then very soon, shortly
Yes.
after, you have this beautiful baby that comes along. That's just one example.
Yeah.
This would be another example, just letting go.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it's a process, more than it is just an event.
Yeah. Well, you mean when they go out of the
Meaning
home and
it's not just a rip the Band-Aid off. It's,
yeah.
it's a process where you probably go through the stages of grief.
Yeah.
We've talked about that in our posts, and I think we're talking about that on a upcoming podcast, but it's an unfolding, it's a gradual, is my
It
point.
is. And I think
Gradual
circling back to
surrender.
this letting go of worry, that's the same way. I think that's what you were getting at is
Yes.
that you have to kind of surrender. And I mean, let's face it, at the end of the day, we were never really in control to begin with. There
Yes.
are so many things out of our control that we do. It's a daily letting go and surrendering that you can't control everything. This is what we're grappling with when we worry about our kids is that we're not in control of what, and it's a whole nother level of worry at this stage because and we've talked about this before when we think we know what's best for them, but they're not doing it, you worry even more. So it's getting to that place of not only letting go that you don't have control of extenuating circumstances, but you also don't have control of the decisions they're going to make. And I mean, you can't be there to watch everything they're going to do. And they
Yep.
might choose to do something that's going to bring them some harm that you have to, set them back. I mean,
Painting a
for
rosy
real.
picture.
I'm sorry, but
True.
it is
I have
true.
written here in my notes, acceptance that life is uncertain. If you're prone to worry, you may have to develop practical practices, I'm sorry, that are aimed at keeping your attention on the present and helping clear your mind and lead to a more relaxed state,
Yes.
right? So it's not necessarily about letting go of the worry, because the worry may be there,
Yep.
but it's about staying in the present and staying in what you can control. You cannot control them. like you said,
Yep.
at this stage, and
Yep.
you can't control their decisions, but what can we control? We can control our internal emotional
That's it.
state. And that helps us to better cope.
Yes.
Yep.
That's where these things that we talk about, the stress management type things,
Right.
and working on yourself emotionally and mentally are so important, because when you are more, when you are more grounded, when your nervous system is more calm, you handle all these things so much better.
Yes.
I think that's
Let's
point
talk
one.
about some examples for that.
Some examples for letting
Practices
for
for
stress management.
stress
Well,
management.
for me, the biggest thing for me, the overarching theme is always sleep.
Mm,
It sounds like that wouldn't be a stress management tool, but for me, I 100% hands down am not my best self mentally. And I don't mean just thinking clearly or brain fog. I mean like how I'm looking at the day or what's happening in my life, how my stress level is, whether I'm anxious. It always goes back to how much sleep that I've had. And unfortunately, that is a negative feedback cycle, because if there's something going on with one of your kids, right? Something
you're
acute
up
that you're worried
worrying.
about, then you have trouble sleeping because you're worried.
Mhm.
It's easier to do that. So my advice would be, when things are going well and smooth,
Get your
make sure
rest.
you're getting your sleep so you're prepared, and then you can bring in tools when you need to get sleep, but sleep is not
More
there for you because
elusive.
you're more.
Yeah.
Thank you. Those were the words I was looking for. So I'll just list a couple things real quick since we hit that topic, 'cause these are good practical tools for us,
Yes.
right? Magnesium.
It's
And
great.
I take that at night to sleep, but this could be something you use during the day if you're feeling particularly anxious or worried, because it's a muscle relaxer and it's a calmative. It calms your nervous system. So magnesium is something that's really simple to do. Um, and I don't want to get too far into this because this could take us in a rabbit hole. But I love essential oils too. So like lavender oil, I'll use at night before bed. That's a great way to unwind and relax and get
Mhm.
sleep.
Yeah, I would think just training your brain that when you smell the lavender, it's bedtime too.
Yes.
Like it's almost a training.
Yes.
Yeah, I have yoga.
Yep.
I love yoga for less for the flexibility, although that's wonderful too.
Yep.
But honestly, when you get in there, you so stay in the present and focused and clear. And I think that's really where it's about, because we can skip to, well, what if, oh my gosh, and what if that?
Yes.
And what if that? Well, you have to just come back and what you know right now in this moment
Yes.
and stay there. And I think yoga is one of those practices. Hiking. I mean, if you're blessed enough to be able to get out and go hiking from your home, that is a very meditative practice for me. I know you tried Tai Chi, and that's something it was not a success.
I'm not ripping on
For you.
anybody that did it, but it was because my functional medicine doctor, I was so ramped up. I was struggling so much.
He's
Like
like,
my nervous
"You need
system was
to."
on overdrive. And I was doing all of these things, like L-theanine and Tulsi, like just different things to calm my nervous system, like supplemental wise. And he's like, I think you need to try some Tai Chi. Well, forget it. I didn't like it. But
Not
some
for you.
people love it. It wasn't for me. But anything that you can do, to your point, that brings mindfulness or brings you to the present
Yeah,
moment.
getting adjusted for me.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with chiropractic, that will obviously, that's what it does.
Agreed.
It aims to balance the nervous system, but praying too. And if you're not religious, we happen to be Christians. This isn't a program where we highlight that necessarily, but those are for sure practices on relinquishing control, right? If you believe in something, whatever that is you believe in, for us, it's God, but letting go and letting God, right?
Yes, there's so I'm glad you brought that up, because I was gonna hit on that too. And I was this will tie in. I was flying here yesterday and there were storms
In the
everywhere.
massive windstorm.
Yeah, it was very, very bumpy the whole way out. As a matter of fact, I almost didn't make it here. I had to hop on a different flight to get here because it was so bad up a little further north. And I've talked about this before, but I deal with anxiety in general, but I was really like, there was a period in my life that I just stopped flying because I was so afraid. So the
We
bump,
drove a lot of places to meet you. Well, we
yes,
flew to meet you.
and
You
I
would
drove.
drive.
Mhm. But you went to places that were drivable
Yeah.
for me. Thank you for that. You're such a good friend. Um, but anyway, to the point of prayer, and for me, scripture, and once again, our belief system, we're not whatever. I'm just telling you what works for me. But on that flight, there's a scripture that I keep close to me, and it's from Psalms 23, but this is my Bible is a different translation. So if you guys are familiar with the Bible, it might not make sense, but it's um your authority is my strength and my peace.
Mm-mm.
And I said that out loud a couple not loud for the whole plane to hear me, but just I said it in my mind and just whispered it. And it centered me so much because to me that says this is not in my control,
Yeah.
but somebody else, somebody higher than me knows what's best and they are authoritative and they've got it. And that gives me peace and strength.
Love it.
So
that.
that's where I go. I mean, that's the first thing I do if I'm worrying about anything, and in particular my kids, is I have to hand it over. And I think that's where faith is so huge, that these things that we just can't handle, we can do all the self-work and the self-love and the self-care and all these things and the stress management tools. But if for me, the best thing is to be able to hand that over and know that I don't have to, I'm not in control and somebody else knows better.
Love that. That's wonderful. So let's stay in the practical for another few moments
Yeah,
here.
please.
So some other strategies, you can write down your worries. So I remember talking to you, oh, it was probably going back a year and a half or more now. And I was just having this bad day and I was worried about this or that. Do you remember this? And I
Which
sat
day
in my
was
room.
it? Just kidding.
I sat in my room. And so it was just like unsettling, whatever it was like swimming around in my brain and it was making my day seem really bad. And I ended up writing it down, like all the things that were bothering me. And
Oh.
I like laughed my
I
butt
remember
off,
this.
because after I wrote it down and looked at it, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? This is what I'm worrying about today. And I don't even remember, it was probably something stupid, you guys, but even if it isn't, even if it's a big worry, putting it down on paper so that you don't make it bigger than it is. That's
100%.
a very practical strategy.
And let me tie that back to better sleep too. And I talk about this in one of the master classes, but a really good thing to do if you're having trouble, because a lot of times we lay down and that's when all the thoughts start and the worries start. So what you can do to avoid that situation is, to your point of writing down, keep a notebook by your bed or journal or whatever. And before you go to bed, list all the things that are on your mind that you're worried about. And then tear out that piece of paper, rip it up and throw it away.
That's good.
And it's really cathartic. It's just a very, like, there's something that triggers in your brain that you're going through that process of writing it.
Yeah.
First you're getting out of your brain. It's even if you just write it down, but if you take that next step and shred it up and toss it,
in other words,
that might really, it's a
out.
simple thing, but it can be very helpful.
I love that. That's really good. Also, if you're prone to worrying and you're prone to making something bigger than it is, because again, right? Yeah, we're all raising our hands here. You have to come back a little bit. So especially if you've gotten yourself all worked up and it's something with your kid and like, you're not sure what's going to happen, pull it back. And in that moment, just ask yourself, what is the most likely consequence? What's the worst case scenario? And what's the best case scenario? And sometimes the worst case scenario is really, really scary, but at least knowing it and seeing it and dealing with it is easier in some ways and respects than not addressing it or not facing it.
Yeah.
And also just asking what is most likely. So out of the best and the worst, what's likely to happen? And it's kind of the old adage. If you're sitting by a window and you hear an animal that has like hooves, you don't think it's a giraffe if you're in America, right?
Yeah.
You would think it's a horse or a deer or something like that. A lot of times in our brain, we have this tendency to just automatically go to the giraffe. Yeah. With our worries.
Absolutely.
And chances of that are just less likely.
Yeah. And it to your point, it's that, I'm worrying about 100 things and 99 of them aren't going to happen. It's always that, right? That's where our worry goes. The thing that's the least likely to ever happen.
Yes. Yes.
And I think too, to your point, like because the other thing for me, and I think many of us would agree with this, it's always the fear of the unknown, just not knowing how it's going to play out. So to some extent, writing that down, like you just suggested, will kind of, you maybe can let in on some of that.
It makes it the known.
Yes, it makes it more known. At least you know what the outcomes could be. And I would add to that, and this isn't, and maybe this is where you're going next, but I would add to that, with the writing down, you could take that a step further. And this is where you reach out to other moms that have kids of this age, and maybe that's in our Life After Kids membership
Community.
community, or friends that you have, because this is why we all need to lean in on each other, because you might reach out and find somebody that's been through this and can offer you advice, or even if it's not advice on how to handle it, just to reassure you that I've been there, my kid has been there, and it's okay. You will get on the other
Yeah.
side of it.
Yeah. That's really important. Just to not feel so alone
Right.
in that moment when you are worrying about
Exactly.
something.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially if it's serious.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. So coming back to where we kind of started the conversation, just some notes that I have here that, just remembering where these worries come from too. Generally they can come from one of two places. So either that feeling that you're out of control,
Yep.
right? So if you are feeling out of control with your kid, acceptance that that's the way that it is, but how can you take some action in your own life, in your own environment, in a healthy way? So I have a tendency to be very like, I'll straighten things. That's my sense of regaining control. Like some people would call it OCD, whatever, right?
Whatever.
Fix the pillows 10 times a day. So would would you say that's healthy? I don't know, but it makes me feel better and it doesn't hurt me. My
I was going
family
to say, it's not
doesn't.
hurting you. It's not hurting anyone else.
No, it's just,
Yep.
it's
weird.
just funny.
I'm just kidding.
My mother-in-law thinks I'm crazy, um but yeah, what can you do to just, I guess there's also taking really healthy action like exercising, you guys. Like if you're worried and you can get yourself at all to that place, I guarantee you will feel better afterwards.
Yes.
You will
Moving your
never,
body
ever
is
feel worse.
huge.
Even if it's just to take a walk, even if you can't say like, I can't I'm so worried right now. I can't even bring myself down to focus. Just a walk.
Yep.
Take your dogs, just get outside,
Yep.
swing your arms.
Or a couple
raise some hair.
squats or a couple jumping jacks. Like anytime you move your body, you change your mood and your mind.
Absolutely.
So just a quick reset. That's huge.
Absolutely.
But if you can get outside and take a walk, even better. Like
Yeah.
100% for sure. That's going to change
So
my mood quicker than
just
anything.
Practical and seems obvious, but
Yep.
you might need this reminder
Yep.
today. And if you're worried, the other place that this can be coming from is the feeling that you haven't prepared them well enough
Yes.
when they're not making the right choices,
Yep.
perhaps. And that then becomes a trust in yourself. It comes back full circle. Because if you doubt yourself in any way, then you may doubt your capabilities as a mom or capabilities to lead them
Yep.
to make good decisions. And the saddest part about that is we have to accept some of that.
Yeah.
Our window is closed for how much. It's not entirely closed, but
Yeah.
we've made most of our impact by now.
Right.
If they're out of your house.
And I think we have to treat ourselves with a little more grace there. And also like this is a situation where I have the tendency anyway to make things all about me. So it's an easy way to take your focus off of what's actually happening and make it about you. Like, well, it's all my fault. If I had done better, or if I had, or why didn't they
That's
listen
a
to me?
great
I told
point.
them to do this.
Yeah.
And we have to shift that focus because it's not always, and maybe that's a silly thing to say to a group of moms listening to us because for most of our life, the focus has been on our kids, not us. But it's an easy way to your point, you have to let that go because you're not, however you raised your kids, you're not taking it back. So it's like, let go of what you wish you would have done differently. And what can you do right now in this moment in time?
Yes. Yeah. And you can always, if they let you can always reason with them,
Yeah.
rationalize with them. And maybe you can't do that, but you can always do this. And that is model better behavior through your own actions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then finally, just a conversation around your diet and how your diet can trigger, physical factors in your diet can be creating more worry, more anxiety, more, right? You have a lot. I know
I'm a huge testament to that.
I've got gluten written here as a trigger, sugar as a trigger, and caffeine as a trigger.
Yeah. Those would be the three.
If you're really struggling with worrying, you could maybe be going through a hard time with your kid, but look and see, like, are you drinking 3 and 4 cups of coffee in the morning? Because that is certainly not helping you. That is compounding everything.
Absolutely.
Making it worse. So
And sugar will generally do that too, because your blood sugar is going up and down and it can bring on anxiety. And this is the thing. What you're eating is not causing your worry about your kid. There's something
That's a
going
good
on,
point,
obviously,
Steph.
that you're worrying
Yeah.
about. But if you're already worrying, you don't need to make that worry worse by what you're eating. So
Right.
this is where, like, I find if I'm going through a really stressful season, whether it's I'm worrying about my child or with you and I right now with everything going on with our business, all the things we have to do, how busy life is, I always go back, and you do this too, back to square one,
Mm,
which is I can't change what's happening right now. But what I can do is make sure that I have myself equipped to handle it as well as possible.
love it.
And that goes back to, what do I need to do for stress management? What do I need to do for moving my body? What do I need? How am I eating? And if I have those in place, then I at least know that I've covered the bases with what I can do to make sure that I'm going to handle this as well as
Love
possible.
that. It all comes back to what the control we have about ourselves and our response, and so much less about our kids than
Yes.
we realize.
And I want to say one more thing too, beyond this, is that when you have something for yourself,
Mm.
another
Meaning another
purpose
purpose.
to focus on, another outlet beyond your kids, you will find that your worry decreases because you just don't have as much time to do it.
Right.
You have another outlet for that. Our brains are always going, at least mine is, right? And if you have a good positive direction to put those thoughts and that brain power, as opposed to just loosely,
Yeah,
too much free time and time to worry, it changes things.
exactly. So if your brain, if your kid is out of the house and basically you don't have some of those activities to, like you said, channel your efforts and your talents into, then you are going to come back, you're going to have extra time, and you got to find a way to fill that somehow. So
Yep.
it's either going to be, getting in your husband's way or doing something there, or it's going to
Guilty.
be sitting around worrying about your kids.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought up that point, because that's, everything about who we are, at the core of who we are, really.
Yes.
In finding those things that bring you meaning and bring you purpose, and turning to that instead of the low-hanging fruit of worrying and
Yes.
staying in that sort of self-punishing place.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. I think we can wrap there. Did you have anything else you
It's a
needed
good
to
one.
add?
Nope.
I love when you're like patting yourself on the back. That was a good
Like,
one.
I did a good
Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. Make sure that you are following us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We've got the free private Facebook group. We also have the Life After Kids membership community. You'll want to go to our website, www.lifeafterkids.com, where you can find all the things, including the podcast and all of our free resources. Take some time to get yourself balanced and well, and I hope you'll put some of these strategies into place so you can decrease the worry you have over your kids.
Love that.
Have a good one, ladies.